to the last session of Reflect on and Improve Own Professional Practice. I am coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and welcome Aboriginal colleagues who are joining live or virtually in our class. So this is the last one, and we kind of cover off a little bit of duty of care, a little bit of reflective practice, and then all of what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks kind of sets us into next week of use communication to build relationships. So that one, our class next week, we're actually going to cover quite a lot of content in the time together. So you may see it as 3 sessions, 3 separate PowerPoints. I'll be going through 3 separate PowerPoints, but we're going to cover it all next week. And so I'll give this speech next week when we start around, and we'll just kind of cover the highlights of everything so we can get through it in our time together. And then feel free to ask questions during class, at the end of class, or bring it up at the next time we meet. That's fine too. So in our last session of Reflect on and Improve Own Professional Practice, I would love to hear from the people that we have in this class space, of your thoughts on reflection. We've had a lot of activities over the time around professional development plans, around self-care plans, around just looking after ourselves as best as possible. So to the guys here, over to you. If you can share your thoughts on reflective practice. Have you engaged in it much? Do you enjoy it? Do you not? Anything you want to share around the practice for you? So over to you guys. You can jump in when you like.
I find it a bit of a challenge because I'm always looking forward.
Yeah.
So it's quite a challenge to stop and think back about how I could have done something better or done something different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair view on it. Thank you, Cal.
Okay.
There are 2 types of reflection we can do in terms of past and present. So you can Google a reflection on past and reflection in present. And they're 2 kind of broad models around, are we reflecting on something that's already happened or reflecting in the moment? Now, this reflection in the moment is a little bit more challenging, where it requires you to consciously bring to mind and almost look at yourself in the moment from someone else's perspective. You're looking at it from your perspective, but it's like you're freeze framing where you are, what you're doing, and considering what is happening for me in this moment. And you think about your feelings, you think about your thoughts, you think about your body positioning, you think about safety, you think about other people who are in this environment with you, and you think, what is happening and where am I going with this? So the reason I say it's a little bit more challenging is because it really requires a sound level of reflection on action. So being able to understand how to reflect on things past and then applying that in the moment. So imagine this space here where we're all together. And in this moment, I might take an opportunity to think, what am I saying? What am I doing? Am I talking about the right content? Are we going to a place I'm trying to achieve for this evening's class? That kind of thing. And I will do that in my head throughout our class to just check in, am I on track with what I want to achieve for the class space? And now you guys know that I do that, but you probably wouldn't have known I do that before, because this is an internal moment where I just check, are we okay? Are we on track? And so you can do this at any point. Let's say you are, a really easy example is you're in the grocery line and someone cuts in front of you. You're waiting to pay and someone cuts in front. And an initial reaction might be to yell, hey, there are people waiting. There's nothing wrong with that, depending on how you do it and what happens from there. But that might be an initial reaction because you have feelings about it. You've been waiting. you've got things to do after, you're in a hurry, it's not fair, social justice principles, all of that. But in that moment, before saying, hey, what are you doing? You might stop and think, hey, what's that person doing? Why are they doing that? I've been waiting here 12 minutes. I've got to go move my car, or what's going on for them that they need to cut in? Do they realize there's a line? Are they not aware? Have they got a lot of things in their head that they've kind of tuned out to the actual environment around them? And then when you take that time, you start to think about things from another's perspective, and you start to think about, am I going to act in the best possible way for me and for others? It's not about saying and doing the right thing, the best thing all the time, but it's about making sure that you keep yourself safe and you keep others safe as best as possible, whatever's in your control. So that reflecting in the moment is very quick. It sounds like a long process. It's very quick. It can take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, maybe tops. You don't want to be standing still staring into thin air for a minute while you're thinking and you're supposed to be conversing with someone, but it happens very quickly. And so I say to you all, as you engage in reflective practice and you're kind of looking back and the challenges that might come with that, to stop and think about that. That might improve your practice, should you wish to take it there, to reflect in the moment, if you so wish. Daryl or Sepha, would you like to share about reflective practice and what it means to you?
I can tell you a story, actually, a true story.
Oh.
My late wife is going back probably 10, or probably longer than that now. And we pulled up at a fruit and veg shop one day, and I parked out the front, and my wife went in to get some fruit and veg. Anyway, I just sat in the car, and I was just reading the body language from outside, and I seen my wife come up with a box of veggies that she was paying for, and what you were saying about barging in. And this lady, with two big guys each side of her, a Muslim lady, she had a burqa and all that on, and just sort of barged in front of her. And my late wife was actually funny. She was talking about Spanish before. She had Spanish blood in her, so she didn't really take much guff from anybody. But
Nope.
yeah, and they barged in front of her, and she pulled her up on it. She, sort of diplomatically, she told me later what happened, and the woman turned around and spat at her, and it was shocking. And but she chose to sort of just stand back, and because of the danger of it, obviously read the danger of it, and yeah, but it was a shocking thing. That was when going back probably a fair while ago. Actually, now I think of it, over 20 years ago. So I suppose that's reflecting in the moment.
Yeah, that's an unpleasant experience for your wife, and she's obviously wanted to do the right thing by everyone waiting in the line.
Yeah.
And then has had that response from this person, and then thought, oh, actually, is this not safe for me?
Yeah,
I
but
won't engage.
you don't know what happens to her too. Like I've seen a lot of the opposite way. She could have been treated really badly before that by other people, like because she was, had a burqa and stuff on, and she could have got like that for that reason, being treated bad all the time. So you don't know. Like you said, you just got to sort of assess the situation, and try and keep safe, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Daryl.
No, that's okay.
That's an excellent perspective to think about other people. It can be very hard. We all have our own feelings, and we all get frustrated, we all get sad, we all get happy. And our feelings are our feelings, and they're most important to us, as they should be. And when we stop and think about what could others be experiencing in this moment, we start to think about, oh, what am I contributing to this? And this is super helpful, in people having an argument with someone, particularly in intimate relationships, whether, partners, whether family members, whether close friends. And you often feel a lot safer with these people to express yourself and to be yourself, which is wonderful. But you can also be in that space of just reacting and responding, and they're saying and you're saying and they're saying and you're saying. And so if you have a moment in that space to stop and think, Or even before you go into it, you know that the vibe feels off and it's charged for an argument. Do you want to go into that? Or do you want to see if we can do something to prevent that, put things off? So that can be really helpful to just think about, I don't know, partner's come home late, hasn't had dinner, been working long shifts, really tired, hasn't had time to exercise. You know, behavior that is inappropriate is never okay. And it doesn't excuse any of that, but we just think about, oh, what are the reasons why someone could be acting this way? It's not your job to fix it or to make it okay. You know what I mean? But maybe you not responding, not reacting in that moment, hopefully leads to a moment later where that partner says, oh, sorry, I came in the door a bit snappy. Or that was a lot happening. But, you know, thank you for not grilling me. You know, and you've been able to address needs, voice needs, and not have an argument. Can be really helpful. I'll share a story. I was in Indonesia, in Bali, many years ago, and I went into a shop to try and buy some things, just touristy knick-knack things. And the person in the shop, the shopkeeper, was really rude to my friend and I. We hadn't said anything, done anything. I think we'd said hello. We hadn't done anything inappropriate. We've just walked into the shop, and the shopkeeper was quite rude and, you know, dismissed us. And I asked how much this was or what's this and things like that. And she wasn't having a bar, and she sort of said, if you don't like it, leave. And I hadn't said I didn't like it. I just wanted to know how much it was. And I walked out and I thought, oh, that was a bit confronting. And then I thought, I looked around, and my experiences over the next few days in Bali made me look at other tourists, and particularly Australians at the time, who were rude and inappropriate, bombing into child pools, running around, screeching, running around drunk. That's not good behavior. It doesn't matter how cheap things are to buy. It doesn't matter how beachy it is and you walk around in thongs and a singlet. Don't walk around in a bikini. Be respectful to people that live there. Be respectful to other tourists. So when I looked around, I really thought, oh, okay, that person's coming from a place of expecting Australian tourists to be rude and obnoxious. And so got that I was Australian and, you know, wasn't happy with that. And so I acknowledge that what I represent is part of a bigger group of people who maybe aren't acting the best way. So I didn't take it to heart. I said I wouldn't return to Bali because I just thought, oh, it was a bit overrated. But then I did a few years later. So there you go. But that's okay. I've been to Bali twice now. I don't need to do it again. Stepha, anything that comes to mind to share in reflective practice for you?
No, pretty blank right now. So,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
No dramas. Cool. Well, whatever you all take from it, I hope you take how useful it can be. I know it can be challenging. I know there's so much to do in a day and so much to think about, and you're like, oh, do I take this time for reflection? It can be as lengthy or short in time as you make it. It could be as in-depth and complicated as you want to make it. You can stop and think for 60 seconds. Pardon me. You can write things down for 2 minutes. You can sit in a quiet space for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes, for 60 minutes, if you can sit still for that long. Reflection is what you make it, but hopefully you do give it a go, and keep trying to work through it, because it is really valuable to your practice, to you as a human being, so that you can contribute well to your relationships and to your life, and to keep yourself happy and safe. And in the work that we do, you will be faced with clients who will be upset at times, who will be frustrated at times, who might be intoxicated at times. So before you respond to anger with anger, can you take a thought of what's happening in this moment? That behavior is not okay. you get yourself safe, move yourself, get out of that situation, leave the house, whatever it is, but not responding to anger with anger. Or confusion that people might have. Think about, have I explained things as best as possible? Have I given someone all the information possible that's suitable for their needs in their language, written clearly? Maybe it needs to be in a video because literature reading and writing is a bit of a challenge. Think about those things before responding to, well, I've done everything I can, for example. Reflective practice is not necessarily about changing things. If change is needed or if change is helpful, great. But sometimes it could be around, I did, I said, they did, they said, this is what happened. It was good, it was not good. Looking forward, would I do anything different? Maybe not. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the best action. But you get to that, I guess, assessment of what happened and where are we going from here? Or sometimes you do have a moment where maybe some change is needed. You know, let's take the intimate partner example of having that argument, and you think about it and you go, oh, yep, I could have recognized that I was really hungry and really tired and didn't need someone at me as soon as I walked at the door. But I didn't need to yell to say that. I could have taken a breath and thought, okay. And then express with words kindly how I'm feeling. Bring up some slides. Talking about legal and ethical considerations is not new. I don't think. I think you've all been in a few subjects where we talk about this quite often. It forms a major part of your assessments here at HADA as well, and it will form a huge part of your working life in the field. So when you get into a workplace, any workplace, you could take a job in hospitality. Wonderful. Familiarize yourselves with policies and procedures that are relevant to that workplace. You know, for example, if you're in hospitality, a lot of WHS policies and procedures are going to be very relevant. There might be procedures on good customer service and caring for customers and things like that. When we're in this space, you're going to have the additional considerations of privacy and confidentiality, disclosure, informed consent, and duty of care, just to name a few. There is a Duty of Care Act. There are steps set out in that by state, territory, federal governments. And then there will be how this looks in your particular organization. So that will be the directions and the rights and the duties around how do we actually ensure duty of care in this workplace. Ethics is that other wonderful area that isn't legally binding, but forms a huge part of your work. You have your own ethical code, how you're raised, the environments you've experienced, what you've learnt, what's important to you. That all forms part of your personal ethical conduct. You have a justice system within you that you deem what's good and bad, wrong and right. That could be the same, that could be very different to mine and to everyone else's here in this space. Chances are we're going to have a lot of commonalities. One, because we're human beings, and two, because we're very interested in this space of supporting vulnerable people. So check your ethical conduct or your moral compass and be aware of what's important to you. I'm not asking you to change anything. I'm asking you to be aware of what's important to you, because what's important to you could be different to what's important to our clients. And that's okay. You don't have to change your ethical conduct. They don't have to change their ethical conduct. But if you're going to work together, you have to find some middle ground. If you're not going to work together, you have to recognize that. If it's a case of recognizing ahead of time, and I've spoken earlier on when we first met around if there's a particular population group that you don't particularly like to work with, you have strong values against that, or you're just not comfortable, you don't feel like you have the skill level. It's important to try and recognize that early on, or at least before you're in a position where you might be working with those clients. But should you find yourself in that environment, I highly recommend that you speak to a supervisor very quickly to address what's happening for you and what clashes are happening in ethics for you. You should never be asked to do anything outside of your ethical conduct, your personal and your professional. I ask you to consider the professional ethics as number one when you're in the workplace. And again, thinking about if there's something in the profession that goes against your personal ethics, I would think about how ethical is that procedure or aspect or thing you're being asked to do or engage in. Ask yourself, how ethical is that the business is asking me to do? If it's ethical in terms of policies and procedures, okay, well, you check what your moral compass is and why that's clashing. If you come across conflicts of interest, these could be with people, these could be with organizations, this could be with an area. I typically have not wanted to work in the same area that I live in when I was doing outreach support. I didn't want to run into a client in the area that I'm doing my own life things. And I didn't want to have to say or be in a position where I say, oh, I live, you know, in this area or whatnot. I would never tell people the suburb I lived in anyway, whether it was, you know, the same suburb or 10 suburbs away. But that was something that I tried not to do. Wasn't always possible. Sometimes some things blurred, and that's okay. I didn't have a problem. I kept my boundaries. I was mindful of where I went in my free time, my weekend time. And I would also have rules with clients, and I would have these conversations with clients early on. I would say to them, and it might not even be in my personal time. I might be at work, but just not seeing that client, but I run into them out in the community. So I'd have a conversation with a client and I'd say, if I were to see you at Woolworths, how would you like the engagement to go? My recommendation is we don't engage in a long conversation. That isn't time that we have together in terms of working on goals or working on treatment approaches or working on anything therapeutically. But you tell me how you'd like it to go, because I recognize it's your community as well. And more times than not, they would say, no, just talk to me, say hi, and act normal. And I'd say, okay, I will say hello. I won't go out of my way. I won't ignore you. But if we do engage in conversation, I'll really just say, how you doing? And then I'll go about my business and ask you to do so as well. Again, remembering we're not in that space together, but I know that you're there and I want to say hello. Some people would ask to not make myself known as a community worker. They don't want their friends, family members to know that they're receiving community support, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes the client would introduce me as an acquaintance. Sometimes they'd introduce me as someone they used to work with, someone that lived down the street a long time ago. We'd make up some loosey-goosey stories there, and that's okay. I don't mind that. I never ran into the same person again in terms of someone from that person's life, but that's okay. If that makes the client feel comfortable, that's fine. I don't rush in and say I'm a community worker because I don't know the impact on that. I would think about if you're in a space in the AOD field and you run into someone out in the community and they're with someone else, I'd be extra mindful of, if you are going to say you're a community worker, support worker, what impact that would be. Maybe they're with someone that doesn't know they have a current or past addiction to AOD. Maybe they're with someone that doesn't know they're receiving treatment for AOD. Maybe they're an employer that has no idea of any AOD use or intervention, and that could impact the person's employment if the employer suddenly knows that they're using or have used. So just think a little bit longer if you are in an AOD working space specifically, around being mindful of, if you see someone, how you introduce yourself or what you say, and having those agreements in place ahead of time. Your legal requirements will center around WHS, mandatory reporting, anti-discrimination, privacy and confidentiality, maintaining safe workplaces. We all have a duty of care to maintain a safe workplace. In maintaining a safe workplace, we all have a requirement to report hazards, injuries, risks, either to ourselves or to others or to the business, to the floor, to the walls, to a vehicle, to plumbing, something that might cause a risk, a hazard, whether it damages property, whether it affects, damages, impacts a person. We all have that requirement to report. We also have a requirement to work with the business around how do we fix a problem. In 2000 and something, 15, I could be wrong. Safe Work Australia put out psychosocial hazards and risks as being part of the WHS Code and Act. So if you are affected by a psychosocial hazard, just like a physical hazard or risk, you need to report that. If there's confidentiality around that, if there's a bit of concern around psychosocial safety for you or for others, I would talk to someone like a HR representative around, what should I report? How do I report? How do I do it to keep myself safe, others safe? And then if you're reporting something, it's the business's responsibility to amend that where possible, where required, where necessary. But you also need to be part of that process, particularly if you are affected. Then you might suggest, well, this might be a potential way forward, or this might be a suggestion to fix something. You will have different ways of accessing and reviewing information. There isn't a professional body or association that you need to be accredited with once you finish this course. If you go on to study other courses, for example, if you did a diploma, if you did a diploma of community services, you might be accredited with the Australian Community Workers Association. If you go and do a bachelor's course in something in the human services world, you will likely have a professional body to associate with. But it doesn't mean that you can't engage in professional development and working on your career, working on goals, working on building, expanding your knowledge. So some of you have done, are doing, will do other courses. Wonderful. That forms part of professional development. Last week, we looked at professional development plans and what's important to include in that for you. Now I'm going to ask you, I'll bring this down. now I'm going to ask you to think about a professional association that might be helpful for you to join. Again, there is no mandatory associations or nothing associated with this qualification, the Certificate 4, but there might be associations that you might like to join for professional development, for more knowledge, for community building, for networking. So I want you to research professional associations. You might like to Google professional associations in alcohol and other drug work, professional associations in community services work, for example. That might lead you to other links that you could click on. Just take this space here. I'll give you some time. I just want you to Google what you could join, what you'd like to join if you go down that path. Not something totally random that you'll never want to do in your life, but something that you'd like to join and something that you could join with your qualifications. So I'll just pause our recording. Wonderful. How about, can we start with you, Kel? What did you find? What are you looking at?
I Googled basically what I'm heading towards down my path is to be a holistic healer.
Yeah.
There's several different web addresses. Basically, the meaning I wrote down, holistic healers and natural health practitioners who use a range of healing modalities, techniques, therapies, or remedies in an integrated way to address the needs of the patient or client.
Perfect. Sorry, was this a professional body?
It was the meaning on Google. There was like holistic practitioner courses,
Okay.
be qualified naturopath, holistic wellbeing, holistic medicine,
Okay.
and then the meaning down the bottom of the Google search
All
page.
right. Perfect. Great pathway to take. Did you find or did you come across any professional bodies that might be a part of that work that you want to do?
Well, I think the holistic wellbeing, Embrace Holistic Wellness, and the Holistic Medicine, Functional Medicine Australia, that'd be two sources of information that I could investigate
Fantastic.
when I'm ready to, you know.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Kel. Sapphire, how about you?
I didn't really understand what we're searching for,
Okay.
but is it like the whatever professional associated like with AOD or something like that?
Yeah, so there will be different bodies that might be suitable. So if you were to Google, I'll punch it in on my end. No, bodies for AOD workers.
Turning Point's a good one.
Turning Point.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
cool.
found that, but I thought I'd throw that in.
There's the Australasian Professional Society on Alcohol and Other Drugs. So they're, as the name suggests, Australasian, so over Asia and Australia. They might be a body of interest. Turning Point, I see that there. Alcohol and Other Drug Council of Australia, that might be a body. So the purpose of professional bodies is to be part of a wider network of people that are in the same or similar fields to you, or what you've enrolled in that body. And you can attend training. So there might be face-to-face training, that might be online, that might be webinars. You might have access to read some peer-reviewed articles, or journal articles of a person that they wrote in your professional body. That might be something that you have access to. Also, you might be able to attend meetings or what are they called? Like seminars, or there might be a yearly conference. Often these come at a cost. If you are studying, there is a student fee, like a reduced student membership and or cost to attend anything particular. But you can claim that on tax as well if you're working in the field. So they're there, again, not mandatory for this course and for this type of work, but they might help in your professional development plan of learning more, of growing, of rather than doing another course, which you can if you like. Just keeping that knowledge up, because we can always learn and we can always grow. There will always be new information, new medications, for example, to treat an AOD substance. There will always be something new. So they can be really helpful to kind of continue your learning that way. Daryl, you said you found Turning Point?
Yeah, that's right. It's yeah, especially if you're actually working in AOD,
Yeah.
they have like online free training courses
Sure.
and stuff like that. They have events and all resources, links and that on the page as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, it seems to be ideal for AOD anyway. It'd be probably something if I was actually working. I'm sure that it'll become a time when, you know, I'd want to sort of expand my knowledge a bit or something, or have help with something. So that would probably be helpful for me.
Yeah, perfect.
And it's, you can do it online, like I said, so it's, you know, pretty flexible. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
It's okay.
I might just ask you guys to go on mute there. I'm just getting background noise. Unless you're jumping in for chat, that's perfectly fine. So when we get into next week's class of use communication to build relationships, a lot of stuff that we've talked about is part of the content. So I'm not going to cover it in terms of policies and procedures, legal requirements, duty of care. I'm not going to cover that next week just because it's quite fresh. We've spent a couple of weeks and more kind of going over that. So if you see that in your slide pack for next week, we will not do that in detail or at all. I'll just skim over it. I'm just wanting to look at a couple of things. Bear with me as I bring them up. Okay, I want to share my screen. Are we okay to read things from the screen? Is that okay? Cool. Now, the way this Zoom is set up, I can't share things into it, but I can organize to be sent out with the resources that get sent to you. These, I'm pretty sure, are in your learning profile, so you should be able to access it there. But I'm going to share my screen and just ask you to read through this, and we'll just reflect after that. Okay, so this is called Do One Thing Different by this author. And it takes into account what they determine a common sense approach to changing your life and to solving problems, looking at changing what you do and changing how you view things. So I think that's quite important in terms of reflection. Now, I'm going to leave this here. There's more to this. So when you have read through this, just say finished, and I'll wait for everyone to say finished, and I'll scroll through.
Yeah, finished. That was funny.
Finished? Sapphire as well? Cool.
Yep.
Yep. Quite funny, that example there, right?
Yeah.
At first you're like, wait, what's happening? And then you're like, oh yeah, I can't continue if this is happening. All right, have a read of this paragraph here. Done with this bit?
Yeah, I'm done.
Cool.
Don't know about Zephyr. Is he finished reading? I don't know.
I saw some nods. Yep. Just tell me when you get to the end of that first bit. Have we finished just those bullet points?
Yeah, I've got to the end of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I just wanted to highlight a point here that when we do things often, even when they're habitual, so they've become habit, brushing teeth should be habit for most people. There is an environment that goes with that, or a situation that goes with that. So brushing your teeth happens in the bathroom. Maybe you walk around, but essentially the main aspect of brushing your teeth, spitting it out, happens in the bathroom. Some really good examples there around smoking, around overeating, around different patterns that you might do in the morning or in the afternoon. So we associate the environment with that. Some people who say it's hard to quit cigarettes when they're in social environments because that environment of being with other people brings up that feeling, that desire to smoke cigarettes. So sometimes if we change the environment, change the time, change the atmosphere, it might help and can help to do something differently. Obviously, these are things that you want to do differently, that you want to change, should you want to, then they become part of your change. I'll share in probably around 2021, 2022. I'd already been working from home for a couple of years by that point, with the new world. Was brand new to me prior to 2020, never worked from home. Maybe one day in my life when I was getting like a mattress delivered or something. So by the time I got through around 2021, 2022, I formed really bad habits around just working till whenever, if I didn't have anything on, because there was nothing happening. I wasn't seeing people. I wasn't going out. Maybe I'd done my groceries. Maybe I'd done some exercise. I would just keep working. Now, the beauty was I did start studying in 2021 mid-year, I think. So at least that gave me something to do of an evening. But I would just keep working. And I just thought, well, there's nothing else to do. I'm just working. And it was a terrible habit because my days got very long, which didn't seem to bother me initially because I was like, well, what else am I doing? And I formed this habit of needing to respond to emails or needing to do something, check something at all times of the day and night. So I had to change that. I had to really make the work area, and the computer either got turned off and the phone turned off or at least muted. So I couldn't hear bing and zing of all the things that would come in at any time of day. And that's fine if other people are doing that, that's fine. I don't need to. So I really had to change my environment and not make the work and the home life, the rest of home life, merge together. It wasn't easy at first. It was like, oh, I'll just check. Oh, I'm not doing anything. Oh, there's nothing on TV. Oh, I'm bored. No, what else are we going to do? We need to do something else. We can just sit here and think about not doing anything. That's fine. But we're not going to go to our computer. So slowly, you can change habits. Change the environment is really helpful. Okay, this next bit, I'll let you read it in its entirety, this page, and then you tell me when you're done.
Yeah. Initiative.
Yeah.
Well done, Seth, well done. Excellent. And that's it. There's some information if you want to write it down, where it came from. As I said, it should be in your Accelerate this will probably be in next week's subject, use communication to build relationships. You should find that information there. If not, I'll try and get it sent out to you with all the resources. But I like this as just a little bit of change can be very daunting, can be seem very hard, seem very difficult, seem costly emotionally, financially, maybe so. If it's important to you and you have that motivation to change, and we've spoken about motivation and motivational interviewing many times, if you have that motivation to change, you'll try to make it happen. You might need some resources. You might need to do some research. You might need to talk to a professional, whoever that might be. That could be a counselor, that could be a financial planner. You might need to talk to someone, you might need to involve, and you probably should involve people around you, friends, family, pets. Can be very helpful to support you. And you make a plan and you make those steps to make those changes. The same thing goes with our clients. They have the same aspect of feeling daunted, of feeling scared, of feeling worried, of feeling they're not good enough, smart enough, strong enough, rich enough. Everyone experiences these. Our clients can change. We can change. Our clients can change if they want to. And if they want to, wonderful. Let's help on look at changing the doing, changing the viewing. If our clients do the same thing over and over again and are unhappy, are sad, are frustrated, feel like things aren't going well, feel like their life is not where they want it to be, it's going to stay that way until we change things in it. We change the environment. We change what we're doing. We change who we're with. We change diet. We change sleep. We change exercise, activity. And if we're not thinking about anything else, well, we change the viewing. We help our clients to think about things more broadly. Maybe it's those really, what are called $1 million questions or miracle questions. If you had $1 million, what would you do? How would you spend it? If you had all the time in the world, what would you do? If you could go back in time and change anything, what would it be? Now, we don't want to dwell on the past with that particular question. We don't want to focus on what has gone wrong and everything's gone wrong since then. Maybe, maybe not. Reflect on something you might have changed or a client might have changed or done differently. Great. It seems like you're presented with that right now. What are we going to do differently? How are we going to change? Any questions or thoughts to share on that?
Yeah, not really, but I think it's given me a lot of food for thought, I think, to
Yeah,
think
cool.
about. Yeah. No, it's something like, I think I've slowly learnt that as I've got older, actually, to like think of life as like a ship. You can't just turn a corner. You've got to sort of slowly steer it to where you want to be.
Yeah,
And it's something I've adopted last 10 years, I suppose. But yeah,
brilliant.
it's interesting though, really interesting. And I just did that naturally, but it was good to hear that back because it's the first time I've ever really sort of heard that. So yeah,
Excellent.
thanks.
I love analogies. You're welcome. I love analogies. And if the ship or the boat, the sailboat is a good one, is going to go somewhere, well, someone needs to steer the ship. Someone needs to make the sails move to get the air into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sepha, just anything that comes to mind?
Not really. A lot of people are like scared to make changes in their life. It's like
Yeah.
a thing that you like I used to, like I used to doing it, like it's a day by day basic kind of thing. So yeah, but it's really interesting to read something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, great thoughts. Thank you for sharing. Change is so many things and it can be wonderful. Most of the time, clients who you'll work with have some inclination of change. Even if they say, I don't want to change, it's not about making or forcing change. Absolutely not. But even if they're mandated, there might be quite likely some inkling to change. And it's about finding that safely in their time, working within your skill level and your parameters. But we can help clients to achieve that. And where it's safe to share, you can share a change story, a situation that you've changed, a behavior you've changed. I've spoken about sharing any AOD behaviors you might have changed. I'd be very mindful of that. If you were in a peer worker type role, that's probably more available to that space. If you are in a role where it doesn't matter if you've had lived experience or not, you know, you've got some experience, you've got some knowledge, you've got some education, you're the right person for the job, wonderful. I would just be mindful about sharing that. I always think about safe sharing. What is safe for the client and for me, and is it relevant to our working relationship? And if you answer yes, safe, yes, relevant, okay, go ahead. I'd be mindful of talking about use and intensity and you know, how you got your drugs and things like that. I would recommend not speaking about that, but you might talk about a rehabilitation process you've gone through. That might be the change process you talk about, to share that it is possible. And it's not a story of look at me now, that's wonderful, if that's been an experience for you, but it's I can appreciate change, and I can appreciate that it's hard and it's scary, but I've done it, and I'm hopefully you're so grateful that you've done it, and your life is on a path that you're mostly happy with, sort of happy with, fully happy with, whatever it is for you. So that's all we have to cover and close off our reflective practice subject module. I'm going to stop our recording now.